Today we're going over the potential future of Warhammer 40k Darktide, and I know it's been a rough journey so far, and we've got a long way to go, but it's very clear to anyone who actually plays the game, they love the core gameplay and just hates the greed behind it. So as much distaste as we have for them and whatever they're doing, the game seems to have a promising future, at least eventually, if we pull from the Datamined classes and features that were teased over the course of multiple years that we wished made it in at launch. So lighting this off, we'll just start with the Datamined classes. And there was like 3 archetypes for each class in original conception so that you could tailor your character to melee, hybrid, or ranged, which obviously didn't make it in. But there are still a few sitting in the game files, and the Ogre Gun Lugger really seems like a fun archetype that I know a lot of thick boy mains wish they had on launch. And it really just focuses on being a true shooty boy. And a lot of you know from my alt channel, I love the heavy stubs and the ripper guns. So that 20% damage to suppressed targets as a coherency bonus would just be unreal for your team because you're suppressing almost everything on the map when you're shooting anyways. And there's just a ton of other range bonuses that I'm just going to pop up right here, like the chance to shoot for free and just tons of extra DR while braced against range targets would make this a ridiculously fun archetype to play as. I know I'd love to play as a ranged ogre and without like being a detriment to my team. And its ultimate juices your fire rate and makes you do even more damage, and that would just be ridiculous on the ripper guns and the heavy stubber. So it's something I would definitely like to see in the future and actually would make me excited if it launched. So the second one was veteran squad leader with crack grenades instead of frag grenades, and the reason they're called crack grenades is to crack open armored targets and tanks. I know, crazy wordplay from Games Workshop, but these definitely would be a lot more valuable on their overall damage to crushers and maybe monstrosities depending. But as for the rest of it, it looked really placeholdery and not as complete as the Ogre counterpart, and a lot of stuff keeps getting removed from the game files over time, so the team damage bonus this would bring would actually be pretty solid, and this was more focused on being a support and an actual team class. Like initially the game launched as a team-focused game, and this would have been great for it, with its ultimate just making everyone, including yourself, way better across the board. And its feats really seem like a lot of these unknown conditions would have all revolved around its ultimate, making you want to play around what would provide an insane clutch in most situations. And I honestly think having a team buff for an ultimate would be way better than the current ultimates. They are cool, but they don't really scream team play, and they're really solo focused, and Psyker's scream is so gutted, it's like The Witcher without Henry Cavill at this point. It genuinely feels like someone absolutely has it out for Psyker for no reason at all. But the last Datamined one was Zealot with corruption removal coherency, which sounds pretty good and seems like this was more focused on pushing enemies around and having like an explosive, flashy entrance. So probably perfect for something like the Thunderhammer or Power Maul. And like the post says, it's probably more like a warrior priest. A lot of the classes are already ported over ability-wise from Vermintide 2, along with the bugs. Think like Sienna into the crit bug on the Zealot. So we could pretty much expect that in the future as well. And then after that, there was like a tease and like a YouTube short, like 1-minute video or whatever trailer. And then there's like a Twitter version of that too. And it shows a grunt subclass for veteran, which would have been really cool. And then it also showed Psyker Biomancy, which is also in the game files, but it doesn't have any mention of feats or abilities. And then there was a final Psyker called Protectorate with abilities like Psych Fortress and Force Field floating around, and something called Force Lightning, but not from a staff, like actually cast from your hands. And then there's another thing called Psyker Throwing Knives, which was changed to Psychic Blades at one stage. So I'm assuming there was quite a bit planned for Psyker that we might eventually see, and it would be pretty amazing to be like swinging psychic swords around. That would like, that would be my dream of Psyker, honestly. But this Reddit thread and stuff is linked in the description, along with links to the files if you want to go data mine or whatever for yourself. I did quite a bit of data mining already, as a lot of you know if you've been watching the videos around the patch after Christmas. And there wasn't a lot of new stuff in there. Actually, there was quite a bit of stuff removed. So when we take a look at the other stuff that isn't just subclasses, I really think there was a heavy focus on Psyker. And Psykers just aren't allowed to be alone in 40k, by the way. Like, they have a warp mishap, a demon comes through, and with the Inquisition there, it would be even more serious. So 100% a Commissar class is the first thing that I would assume would be there to just, like, do the usual commissar things and shoot somebody in the back to raise the morale of the troops. And then adding in bolt and plasma pistols would make a lot more sense for them. I think it would probably just be like a melee support specialist, and we're probably looking at like a port from the Witch Hunter Captain on Vermintide 2. And then there's a ton of talk about ratlings in the voice lines on a bunch of different missions, so it's very clear they want to add them to the game as well. And that would probably be a dwarf port, so probably like Ranger Veteran or Outcast, but I really think there would be a ton of value in a smoke bomb skill in Darktide. There's just way too many range mobs, and it would just actually have that like special place. Maybe as like a team buff, you just throw the smoke bomb down, the shooty boys can't actually see you anymore, so they have to rush you. It would just make an insanely strong roll. And then obviously, of course, Tech Priest. This is the one everyone wants. Like when the game launched, people wanted this more than a McRib. It was actually insane, but I kind of get it considering Hadron's basically just a pile of junk that can't craft any weapons or even have all of its features installed yet. And if you watch the Hammer and Bolter episode of the Tech Priest with the Mars robot just deleting tons of orcs, it was actually sick. So it just hits that special Warhammer 40k place in your heart with like the big robots, the servo arm, like everything. So it would just be a cool class, and I could only hope that you get to use like a tech staff and like a servo arm to turn some heretics into mush. But that's not all, because with a competent tech priest on board, we would probably also see weapon attachments now. I know we heard it was immeasurably complex and not Call of Duty, but every single weapon has mounting rails on it for attachments, and otherwise wouldn't make sense to be on the weapons. And in redacted and deleted posts from the past, we know that very clearly attachments were meant to be part of the game and drastically improve the gameplay across the board. Now, this would have been rewarding for a gameplay loop. Like, instead of toxic garbage penances like solo a monstrosity, let me unlock a scope or a grip, whatever, after like X amount of kills. Make it simple, but it would have made way more people interested in just playing rather than gear progression out of some trashy Chinese MMO. And I still think this is going to get added eventually, because the game was literally built around this and gadgets, but gadgets were removed for curios, so I'm assuming they're going to get homogenized into something else as well. But they were supposed to drastically change how your character played. But for the life of me, I cannot figure out why such an important feature that everybody would have loved got removed. But I also understand that they left endless dogs on for 5 weeks and killed their player base off, so it's really just obvious that whoever's in charge is more useless than an NPC on the Morningstar. But I also have some old posts about what they pitched the game as, and reading some of them now almost feels like satire, especially when we dive into the crafting posts that didn't want it to be random and repetitive, but that's literally what it is, and actually makes me wonder if whoever had these ideas just stroked out and full sent it in the other direction. But the main takeaway is that blessings will be able to be collected, and extracting them and placing them onto a new weapon was the actual loop for that. Probably making like a Giga God rolled weapons, like ripping blessings off one thing and putting them onto another for like super min-maxers, like we were trying to do in the first month of the game. But apparently this was cut for the new system, which I'm assuming is just going to end up being pretty much the exact same thing with like a small twist or more RNG, but more likely of the two, it'll just exponentially cost more resources for higher tier perks. And what I actually want is to have a bank of blessings that I can just freely swap between for my weapons for whatever mission I'm going to, just to like mix it up. And on top of that, we obviously have a bunch of new maps coming. And I know me and a lot of other people want like a tank escort mission. That would be nuts, but probably not going to happen. And then finally, there was like the mention of new enemies. So there's that Chaos Spawn boss that was in the launch trailer that we still haven't seen yet. And then there was that Vox cast we heard about a month ago, which lines up with the Chaos Spawn theory of like weird sounds down in the depths or whatever. And it really leaves you wondering what other kinds of enemies we'll fight in the future. I would personally love to see Tyranids, but I'm sure I'll get my fill on Space Marine 2, which I will be making a bunch of videos for that whenever it does come out. Seems to be like it'll be coming out sooner than later, as pre-orders just went up on Steam or whatever. And what I think Darktide needs to succeed at this stage is all of those things, but with a massive shift in pay direction, and purely go into pay to skin with a battle pass and not even think about anything else. The game currently is buy to play, and that's just a huge L across the board. They have old interviews debating whether to make classes paid for on top of the $40 game, on top of skins, on top of a battle pass, and that's just not going to work. That's just going to piss everybody off, honestly. It already pissed everybody off. But games like this cannot thrive on buy to play models. Buy to play is literally just a thing of the past unless you're making like a single player game. And let's be honest, pay to skin is the superior online game model at this stage. It makes infinitely more money. Way more people get access to it. Way more people like it. And then when you make mistakes or content slow, nobody can complain because the game's free to play. And then obviously they would have to compensate all the people that bought it heavily, like a free year of their new battle pass just for supporting the beta, which live is a beta, let's not get it twisted, and then just send it down that route. I honestly think it would make everybody happy. It would make me happy if the game was free to play, but there's probably quite a bit more they can do on top of that. But that's the only thing that I could think of to have the game come back to a healthy population to support its current systems. It's asking a lot, and I know there's a lot of people that are fine with 2K average players in a game, but the company and the majority of us really aren't, and would prefer the game to thrive so they can hire more people, keep expanding the game and make it better so we can meet more people and have more fun on the game we love to play. But something I saw when the game was launching was there's a group of idiots that got chased off of every platform for wanting the game to die and become small so they can enjoy it, because they're so scared of social interaction they can't play a game with 3 other people. And I don't even want to call them a community, probably more like game parasites that have to do enough mental gymnastics just to try and cope with the fact that they aren't special and we all play the same game. They're just happy with L Shark's admittedly unfinished game, and the rest of us just want positive change so it can get better, which I hope the game actually does have a bright future. And I guess while we're in the waiting room we can enjoy Hogwarts Legacy, and I hope it's done by the time at least Space Marine 2 comes out. So let me know what else you guys think they should add. I think that we got most of the data mined and like feature stuff, but if I missed something, let me know. And I'll see you all again on the next video or on the live stream. So I hope you have a great night.